All right, so I think I just am gonna start a channel. I have a lot of hope for this because I feel like the topic is a good one. It's gonna be like about recovery, tell you stories about my active addiction, not like war stories, but just like how I got to where I'm at today. I'm an addict. I'll always be an addict. I'm just an active, like I'm not in my active addiction. I'm in recovery right now. So, I mean, I guess the first thing I should do is start off with my story, like my childhood, how I got to where I am. So my childhood was a really good one. I grew up with my grandparents and my mom and my aunt, my cousins, like literally the whole 9 yards. Um, the only thing I can say bad about my childhood is that I never got in trouble for anything that I did wrong. Um, you know, um, I could do stupid things like sneak out of the house when I was like 16, never get in trouble for it. My grandfather would actually help me sneak out. So, um, that was, I don't know, I guess it wasn't like setting me up for failure, but I just never learned of consequences at a young age. I learned those when I got older. Um, my family growing up was a really good family. We always went camping together. We had, gatherings for all the holidays. Like, we all look forward to doing fun stuff with each other. And, it was a good life. And as I got older, like the first time I ever did anything, I was 14 and I drank, and I didn't just take one sip, I got drunk. I like literally drank a whole bottle. And, then I just kind of never, like, I didn't drink for like another year. And when I was 15, right before the homecoming dance, I smoked weed for the first time. So after that, after I smoked weed, I just was drinking and smoking weed like all the time. So I was like 15 at the time, and then I got my license and thought I was like the coolest kid in school because I got my license first before like everyone. And I would like me and all my friends would go burn riding, taking all the back roads. I'd smoke during school, I'd drink during school. I thought I was just like the coolest shit ever, and I wasn't. And so that was just my life. Like I wouldn't get in trouble because like at the time, I'm not gonna name any names, but there was uh like an administrator at school that would allow me to get away with these things. And like I remember one time specifically, I got caught with alcohol in my backpack because I was shit faced, and it was the bottle of Hypnotic was literally sticking out of my backpack. And the teacher, my English teacher, sent me to the office. And when I went to where I was supposed to go, like the person that I went to go see or whatever, like they pulled me into the office and they're like, "So what happened?" I was drunk. And they're like, "Damn, you smell like alcohol. Like, what's going on?" And I told them the story, exactly why the teacher kicked me out of class, and they took shots of me. And then I took a nap in their room, and they woke me up when school ended, and I went home and drove the car because they said I sobered up enough to drive. And, I was only 16. I'd had my license for like 3 months. And, so I never really got in trouble for any of that. I graduated when I was supposed to, that was cool. I was happy that I did that because I don't think I was going to. I was like a lot of credits short of graduating, and me and my family pulled it together and did a bunch of online classes like 2 months before the graduation, and got a bunch of my credits up because I had slacked so hard in high school from drinking. And I didn't really know anything about addiction growing up, so I didn't think, that it was a problem. I just thought it was like being a teenager and having fun and living my best life. So, like fast forward to when I'm like 20, I'm drinking all the time. I'm throwing parties. I'm going to parties. Like I'm getting arrested for underage intoxication at a party. And, I had to take like juvenile diversion because I was still technically like under the drinking age. So they cut me off the hook for that. And they put me on diversion. And I stayed clean for like quite a bit of time that I was on diversion. But then, it started right back up as soon as I ended that. I started throwing parties at one of my mom's friends' houses that they were letting me watch while they were going to like out of state for the weekend boating, you know. And I remember like that's when I started doing like heavier drugs. Like back then, that's when perk 30s were like a thing, and everybody was doing those. So I'd like sniff a bunch of perk 30s and drink and get all fucked up and have a good time. You know what I mean? I thought I was having a great time. In reality, I was just like numbing my feelings because like I'd just broken up with my first serious boyfriend, and that's literally when all this started happening, And I just didn't know how to handle that kind of heartbreak because I guess I just never had to deal with anything like that before, because the only real loss I'd ever had was my Grandma Jean when I was 7. And honestly, I don't really remember much from when I was a child that young, because I think that in my mind I kind of blacked out that stage because she was like my best friend. So this was like the first struggle I had had. And, I just handled it really wrong. So, fast forward a couple of ragers later, and people are giving me Molly. They're giving me ecstasy. They're giving me Xanax. Like, I'm doing it all. And I think that, like, I'm the coolest kid on the planet because, everybody's coming to these parties. Like, they're like hundreds of people deep. And, I'm the party host. So everybody's hooking me up. And I'm like, this is great. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care that they're stealing all these people's iPods and iPhones and shit like that, expensive watches and shit, because hell yeah, I'm getting hooked up and I'm getting fucked up. But that's just the addict's mind. And I didn't know it back then. So again, fast forward a little bit more. I'm about 23 years old. I had just had my daughter Macy, maybe like 4 months prior to this. And, I'd gotten clean during my pregnancy with Macy. I'd only smoked weed because I was nauseous. So I was clean. And like 4 months after I had her, I wanted to get a Percocet, and nobody had them. So I had a friend that I usually would buy my Perk 30s off of, and they were like, oh yeah, we don't have any, like those aren't a thing anymore. And I was like, oh, all right, well that sucks for me. I guess I can't have one. They're like, oh, well we have this. They just called it dope. I didn't know what the fuck dope was back then. So I was like, all right, well how much is it? They're like, it's so much cheaper. Like it's only, you can just buy enough to get high for $10. I was like, all right, cool. And it's like at this time, it's like bike week. So like I'm trying to go to work and have a good day while I'm selling sunglasses. So I do this dope and I fell in love. I honestly fell in love. I never stopped doing it after that. I had like little spurts of being clean for a little bit, but no, I never stopped doing it. It was always a big thing in my life. So when my daughter was like, I don't know, a year and a half old, I like moved into my own apartment with my best friend, and she found out that I actually started shooting up drugs, and she was pissed and she moved out. Like she couldn't handle the drugs. So after that, I just had a free for all. I'd leave my daughter at my grandmother's house and just do a bunch of drugs, get high and not care. But that's just how it was at the time. Shortly after, I got evicted from that place, and I moved back into my grandmother's house. And then a few months later, I met my now husband. At first I was just giving him rides because we had like a mutual friend who was my dealer at the time. And then we started selling drugs together and doing drugs together. And, our relationship was pretty awful at first. I mean, it was great at first. But then when we actually like made our relationship official, it was really bad. There are some things that I can't talk about still today that happened between us. So basically we're just living the fast life, the chaotic life. We're selling drugs. We're doing drugs. We are, trapping hard or dying, dude. Pretty much is what we were doing. I didn't care that I was putting myself or my daughter in danger because, we had really nice shoes. We had our own apartment at the time. We had really nice clothes. We had really nice decorations. Like everything about what we had was nice, except for like us deep inside in our cores. Everything on the outside looked good, So, we thought we were fooling everybody when we were doing what we were doing. But yeah, when I got sober, I figured out we weren't really that smooth. So, we moved around a lot, in our active use. We moved into his parents, my grandparents, our own house, back and forth. We ended up getting 2 apartments together between like a year and a half span until last June, like the end of April or whatever, May. No, it was the end of May. Sorry. My husband decided to go to rehab. And I was like, all right, good. I'm so happy for you. By the time you come home, I'll be clean. And, it just went from like us mutually selling drugs to just me selling drugs and like feeding my own habit. Like, I was like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. You're gone. I'm going to live the life that I want. Because like at this point, I'm now smoking meth. I'm doing Xanax on the daily. I'm doing heroin on the daily, like fentanyl on the daily. Literally anything I get my hands on. And, I have people coming over at all times because I'm afraid to be alone. I just don't like being alone, and that's something that I've had to work on in my recovery, is codependency issues. Like, that's another thing that I think I'm going to be talking about this channel is like codependency, addiction, just a bunch of different things that I've been to rehab a couple times. So like, I just have picked up on that. I feel like it's important for people who are trying to recover and trying to be sober and stay sober. I struggle with staying sober every day, but that's why I do meetings. That's why I try to stay near sober people and not people who are using. And that's why I try to, like feel my, I try to express my like emotions through like arts and crafts and like talking to my friends and talking to my family and being with my family now, because I know that a year ago this time I was 115 pounds, soaking wet. My face was all sunken. I had track marks all the way up and down my arms, on my legs. Like, I was disgusting. I looked disgusting. I didn't leave the house. I was pale white. I had like the bags under my eyes, like makeup couldn't even cover it. And I thought I looked great, but I didn't. And, so, all right, so we're back at like, I don't know, we're back at like June. My husband's in rehab. He gets out in July. And shortly after, I get evicted from our apartment, which was now only my apartment because he went to go live into sober living, which was a good idea for him. At first, I actually tried to tell him, like, I was trying to distance myself from him because I know that, I was going to drag him back down into the black hole of addiction. And, he loves me and he's stuck by my side through everything. So he just kept pushing, bringing me flowers, trying to hang out with me, like, so that he could watch over me, which is what he does all the time, which is awesome. But it wasn't always that awesome. When we both were using, it was not that awesome. And then, so once I got evicted, I moved into a trap house, somebody else's trap house instead of my own. And at this point, I just kind of knew, like, the cops were watching me, like, they were following my house, like, I just knew. So I was just kind of like, screw it, you know what I mean? Just do as much as you can in the amount of time that you're gonna have, because pretty soon you're gonna be fucking locked up. And so, I'm living at this house and I'm literally like selling drugs out of my bedroom window. Like, it was the drug drive-through. It was disgusting now that I look back at it. But, that's just what I did because I needed to make the money to go see my person and fucking pick up more and make more money and do more drugs, because that's just the way the addict thinks and revolves around, is just drugs and money and more drugs. And, so I was all, like I said, I was smoking meth, so I was really paranoid and I always thought I was going to get raided. Always thought I was getting raided. Like, I'd go for walks at 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning with all of my drugs on me because I'm like, this house is getting raided. Like, I wasn't thinking like walking down the street at 5 in the morning with all my drugs in my backpack wasn't suspicious. Just the house I was at was suspicious. Yeah, that was not a good idea. So we ended up leaving that house and he was still sober. He was actually living at a sober house 2 houses down. And I limited my time with him at that point. It was like he was allowed to come over for like 2 hours, go to a meeting, come back for like 5 hours at most, and then go home for the night. And sometimes I'd like sneak in there, sometimes, but most of the time it was like he was there and I was making sure he was not around drugs. And then one day he comes over and his curfew is 10 o'clock. And he comes over, 2 houses down and knocks on my window in my bedroom. And I'm like, oh, I think it's another customer. So I'm like, what do you need? And I look and it's like actually my husband. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's past your curfew. And he's like, well, I need to come in. I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay, well, I told you not to sneak out, so I don't know what you're doing. And when he came in, he told me he got kicked out for failing a UA and tried to say that he got high from secondhand meth smoke because I smoked meth around him. And I was like, I don't believe a word you're saying, so where are you going to stay? And he's like, oh, I'm staying with you. No, you're not. I didn't want him to do that, but I knew that deep in my mind he was already using or had just started using. So we were there for about 2 weeks. He was not using, at least to my knowledge, but I was also sleeping a lot now that he was around. I had him doing the things that I was doing again for me, which was really selfish on my part for putting him in that predicament. So then we ended up leaving after like 2.5 weeks. I was like, this house is going to get raided. I know it. There was just a lot of crazy chaos going on all the time. Like, I don't know how the cops weren't there more than they were. They were watching though. So we left and we went to his parents' house. They were on vacation. We didn't sell any drugs out of there, but we just kind of stayed inside because I was really sketched out. I was not supposed to be at that house. I had a no trespass order and I was really nervous. So I was not leaving. He could, but I was not. And at this time, the cops were like, pulling us aside at the store and like asking us all these suspicious questions, or like pulling over our ride and being like, hello, Jocelyn. Hello, Nick. Like, we know what you're doing, and we were just like, not even a care in the world. And, so we ended up leaving his parents' house after a week because they came home, and we went to a hotel in downtown where I live. And we were there for about 4 days. And we got raided by the drug task force, by everyone. And I ended up going to jail like a week after. And it was really hectic, like I'd never been to jail in my life. Like the times I got arrested, I just got bailed out. So I didn't know what I was like about to deal with. So we were held on no bail for our charges. We got we got sales charges. And when they searched the room, we obviously had drugs. So we got possession charges as well. And the judge said that we were a danger to ourselves and others. So we were held on no bail. So that was September 12th, the day that we went to jail. And I was in Belknap County Jail until December 8th. And I went to Antrim Rehab for Women. And at that point, I was like, this is just my free ride out of jail. Hell yeah. And then I got out of Antrim. It's a 28-day program. I kind of just rode that wave, like kind of just went along with it, never really paid attention. I came back to the town that I live in, and I lived at a sober house, and I managed to stay clean because I know I was being UA'd and held accountable for once in my life. And then I got sentenced for my charges, and they gave me no pretrial credit. So I ended up having to do basically a county year, which is like a little over 8 months is what I did. I did like 10 months. So that's just how I got to like that point. And then, I got out of jail the end of July, and in August I relapsed and I overdosed on fentanyl. And I had no pulse for 7 minutes, and I was overdosed on a beach. This elderly couple came and found me. The person I was with took off because I guess they had warrants. They found me like dead. I was already blue and pulseless, but they still called 911, and the guy was breathing for me, which in turn saved my life. So I'm very grateful. I wish I knew who they were, but they did not give their names. So I woke up in the hospital not knowing what the fuck had happened. I was getting a chest x-ray and I had EKGs on me, and the nurse told me what happened. I got Narcan 10 times, and I had a trach in my throat basically breathing for me. Like if I didn't have that oxygen, I would be pronounced dead today. So when I woke up, I finally did the right thing, and I called my cousin and I was like, listen, this happened and I need help. And she would not let me do drugs. She just wants the best for me. So I stayed at her house. This was a Sunday night that this happened. And Tuesday morning, I was in rehab at Antrim again. And this time, I had finally hit my rock bottom, and I needed to get the help that I needed. And I wanted it this time. I didn't just need it to get out of jail because, I finished my sentence. I'm no longer in jail. Like if I don't catch another charge, I'll no longer have to go back. So, I'm on probation. I obviously absconded probation when I started using. Like, I used once, but you know what I mean? Like, I just didn't check in because I was like, fuck it, whatever. Couldn't learn from my own husband's mistakes. I've got to do it myself. So, I went to rehab. I called my probation officer. So I got out of rehab, and I'm currently at this other sober house, which is great. I have a roommate that I actually have known for like 10 years. And, we really get along. She's a really good support system for me. But this time I'm actually working my recovery. Like I work part-time, but basically full-time hours. But, I've been going to meetings, and I'm actually like talking about my problems this time around instead of just, going with the flow of things, because I know that that's not how it's supposed to be. I know that that's not how it works. Like, you can't experience the things that I'm experiencing or have experienced and not get help, or not talk about it, because that's just not how it works. It's really not. If I didn't talk about it, I'd probably still relapse, and I'd still be using. But I mean, that's my story, and I guess that's like the first time I've ever put it into perspective like that or talked about it like full on, because people usually just know me, you know what I mean? They just basically know what I've been through most of the time. So like I only have to like update them on what's been going on. So it's like crazy to think about it in the way that I just put it. But I just feel like I know that when I go to meetings around here, like somebody will share their story, and 90% of the time I'm like, wow, we literally, I think, live the same life. Like, how do we not know each other? Or how are we not friends at this point? Because we literally have gone through some of the same bullshit. And it's just, I feel like the meetings, the sober coaches, like they're somewhat annoying, but they're there to help. Like, the time that you don't want to go to a meeting is when you really need one the most. And if you don't use those resources, then you are going to relapse, and you'll no longer be in recovery. You'll just be in active addiction. And that's not a good place to be. It's not fun. I don't wish that upon my worst enemy, honestly. And I guess that's where I'm going to end this video, because it's kind of late and I kind of want to go make snacks. But I need some ideas, I guess. So I need to think of some ideas, but I'm going to try to make this like a daily thing, like a vlog, I guess. So I'll talk to you guys later.